Our next writer, and you know we've been 5 seasons, the phone has never rung once, has it? Till right now. Our next writer's name is Katie Phillips. Katie Phillips has worked as a hotel housekeeper, a laundromat attendant, a magazine telemarketer, a library clerk, and a church administrator. She lives in Geneva, Illinois with her husband, poet Kevin Burris, our reader just a minute ago, and their Alaskan Malamute, Sasha, who is not here tonight, about whom they talk entirely too much. Katie's chapbook, Driving Montana Alone, Slapering Hall, I should have asked you first. Slapering Hall Press was published in 2010, and this is so cool. The title poem was later read by Garrison Keillor on NPR's The Writer's Almanac, which I think is extremely cool. You can pick up that book today for $10 over at one of those tables there. Katie, please, come on up.
Thank you, Kevin and Anne, for inviting me to read tonight. And thank you to everyone for coming. I've been told that there is some sort of sporting event tonight that people are interested in, so thanks for coming here instead. Okay. My first few poems are going to be out of my book, Driving Montana Alone. The first poem is called Motion Sickness. I moved around a lot in my early 20s, and while there is something to be said for exploring a new town, there are lots of bits of moving to a new place that are not nearly so enjoyable, and this poem is about some of those. Motion sickness. It's easy to get lost when your mind is in Montana and your car in Iowa. Just stop programming radio stations. Any mechanic will do. I go to all the grocery stores. The bread and milk, always the same distance apart. Church bells are everywhere. All manhole covers are made in Neenah, Wisconsin. There are birds, Canada geese, American coots, the rare screech owl, female cardinals blushing red. In every place, one moment stands out, shoveling snow as it falls, watching loons skim across water, but no moment here yet. The next poem is called Finding Old Photographs, and it was written after sorting through a box of old pictures, and I discovered a number of pictures of images of a relationship that had ended long before I found the pictures. It's called Finding Old Photographs. Surprised not to care, I dismantle a collage of us. On the porch with the dog in Santa Fe, or in front of Mayan ruins, our heads tilted together. Always I stood to your left. We have become pictures of strangers. I remember stalling, trying to bluff the moment, knowing even then I would not stay at your side. I was fortunate enough that no one in my family died until I was in my 20s when my grandfather passed away. And although this poem is about his wake, it references something that requires a little backstory. My grandparents traveled all over the world. And at one point they ended up in Indonesia, and my grandfather, who was a very large man, found himself very popular with the Indonesians who all wanted to touch his big belly. They thought he was a man of incredible wealth, to be so well fed. They also thought that he must have many, many pigs because he was so wealthy, and they were appalled to learn that he had no pigs, and even worse, he only had one wife. On a slightly darker note, the poem is called Burkett Truby Funeral Home, Pittsburgh. My brother and I talked about how they got his hands just right, cupped and resting. But the big belly that once awed Indonesians who assumed he was a man of many pigs, had gone flat, and his cheeks had fallen back toward the pillow. I could not bear to grip his hand as my brother did, or kiss his forehead as my father did, and when I touched his shoulder, the fabric gave in. The last poem from the book is sort of my go-to poem for this time of year when winter seems to be approaching somewhat too quickly. It's called V, the letter V in the book, but I prefer the original title, which was November. November. I wrote October and meant it. Something would not let me say November, gateway to winter, where weather in the air is mood on the ground. Leaves rot. Alchemy in reverse, gold turns to brown. What was yellow is burned. What was red chases itself down the street. Please do not say it was force of habit. Let us have October for one more day, instead of this unwritable word, which falters under the remembered weight of all Novembers. Say it's only a name, a symbol with no valence, sound without meaning, but the V clinches it for me. Hourglass of time, cincture, color, and rain. I fall into it, inevitable December, my fingers slipping. I have 3 new poems that I'd like to share. The first is called Van Gogh's Wheat Field Under Threatening Skies, and I'm just going to show very quickly what that painting looks like for those of you who aren't familiar with it. I had it here. There it is. It's just a wheat field, dark sky. There's a road headed into the wheat field, and there are birds, just generally. The painting is also known as Wheat Field with Crows. It's thought to be Van Gogh's last painting, although there's apparently some disagreement about it these days. Van Gogh's Wheat Field Under Threatening Skies. The general movement is away until the wheat begins to flatten in the distance. The crows are hardly birds. They are thoughts of birds, the fear of them, even the fear of the thought of them, which is enough to make the green and brown road turn into the deep wheat, and we have lost our way. As my bio mentioned, Kevin and I have a very large princess of a dog named Sasha. She is fortunately not scared of thunder or fireworks. She is, however, scared of flags, large rocks in people's yards, and in this poem, a bird that got stuck in our house. In through an open window. I want to hold the bird in my hands, but I'm not sure I should. I imagine telling people that I did so, and having them recoil in horror, as if I had held a bat, as if everyone but me knows intuitively that you don't just pick up a stunned, white-breasted nuthatch, even if he is in your living room, and scaring the dog with his quick bursts of feathers marring the sunlight. My last poem is about a friend's son. He was just learning to talk, and I found his perspective on the world pretty interesting. This is called Everything is a Duck. Everything is a duck. Ducks mostly, but also dogs and cars. My purse, the picnic table, the trees, and even the leaves, all ducks. I wonder how far a 1-year-old can take this. Is the sky a duck? The wind? He knows what the word means, points a stubby finger in exclamation when an actual duck waddles by. I try to teach him a new word, goose, but all I get in reply is more duck. By now, the afternoon's inhabitants are taking on duck-like features. That woman's puckered lips, that man's jacket, iridescent as he glides away from us. This toddler's wispy hair, never cut, tips up at the nape of his neck. His duck sounds more like quack with every repetition. He will move on soon enough to dog and cup, but the ducks will remain simply themselves, even when everything else ceases to be a duck. Thank you.